Okay. So after Leandra, we have another guest speaker events. However, we haven't finalized the time yet, so we're not sure. But after decide when it's gonna be, we're gonna send out an email, let you guys know. And at the beginning of December, we will have a bonding event. I'm not sure if it's gonna be in person or virtual. If it's gonna be in person, we'll make sure to follow all the safety protocols. But it's just gonna be hangout where you guys can hang out with MOA officers and members, and it's gonna be fun. So yeah.
So if you guys are interested in getting involved or looking for active opportunities, we have this great spreadsheet that Amy and Megan created. It's organized by quarter, and in the spreadsheet, you can find different opportunities involving conferences, programs, internships, volunteering. So there's really a diverse way of getting involved. So feel free to scan the barcode and you will be directly linked to our volunteer spreadsheet. And you guys can also connect with us via our socials. So we have some QR codes with our Instagram, Discord. Make sure to join our email list as well so you can stay up to date with any events we have coming up, as well as any information we would like to share you guys, our upcoming meetings. You can also find our YouTube where you will see our recorded meetings if you end up missing them. And make sure to visit our link tree too. That way you can see all of our socials there as well. So get connected with us.
And now we would like to introduce Tom Nguyen, our club advisor and beloved biological, health, and environmental science counselor here today as our guest speaker. He will be going over major transfer requirements and answering any questions you have about transferring in college apps. He's personally helped me and the rest of the officers here too with navigating course requirements and college life here at Ganza. So we would recommend setting up a meeting with him if you have any questions. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Tom.
Thank you so much for those kind words. I'll try to live up to like the billing. It's always welcome to the fall quarter. It's always a blessing for me to come by and visit with this community, just because every year we always have rock star leaders that step up, and they do such a great job, not just building community, but organizing all these guest speakers and like different service learning opportunities to encourage our students to continue growing, as well as finding campus resources. You know, if you feel you need the additional support, just some encouragement, you know, if you're feeling isolated on campus and you have that need to kind of reach out and connect with people and to feel like you're part of something bigger, MOA has always had a tremendous tradition. Like this is one of the best clubs on campus. And so when they asked me to be an advisor a few years ago, I just jumped on board. Just because this group makes me look so good. I'm like, I'm just here to kind of sing their praises and offer my resources. And you guys have a great group of leaders this year. So with that said, today it's just going to be kind of free flowing. I have like a handout that I'll kind of share. I'll go over it because I think a lot of the folks that are usually a part of this club, they're either interested in transferring out with biology, and then pursuing, different goals around, it could be med school, it could be PA, it could be optometry. And then there's other students that are interested in like nursing and allied health. And so I'll spend some time going over the chemistry and the biology and the math requirements. But I don't want to just drone on about like different requirements. So I'll leave it up to you guys, all the new people here, if you guys have any pressing questions. Winter quarter registration is still a while away. But I'll give you guys some tips and stuff if you're looking for that. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is like a handout that I usually share with my students. So a little bit about me before I jump into this. I've been at De Anza for almost 10 years now. And in my current role for the last 5 years. So when I first started here, I was working mostly with Asian American and Pacific Islander students, supporting different learning communities like MPS, the Math Performance Success Program. And so I used to always tell people, I would have students that are like, oh, my mom and dad want me to be a doctor or a nurse. And so I would be like, well, there's other careers out there. You don't have to be a doctor or nurse. And it just so happened that I became like pretty familiar with those like educational tracks. And then they hired me to work with students who want to be doctors and nurses. So that's kind of my little story. But for me, when I was in college, I was a political science major and I was a journalism major. So I enjoy listening to the stories of our students and, where they're from and, what's happened to them in lives and how they've kind of responded to life's events. And, just my role is to listen and be supportive and help you find new opportunities to write the next chapter of your story. So with that said, if you look at like this handout, this is usually kind of helpful for a lot of our students. So if you're thinking biology and you want to transfer, whether it's a UC campus or Cal Poly or a private school, we had a couple members last year who ended up going to USC. Then you would do the classes that are listed on the left-hand side. It's the pre-professional track. So, pre-professional, professional school, like medical school. The math classes you would be taking, it depends on your placement, but it could be pre-calculus or calculus. And then you're moving on to chemistry. And then, typically students have to do chemistry 25 unless they've passed our science placement exam or if they have AP chemistry score of 3 or higher. If you have those, results, then you can bypass Chem 25 and move on to general chemistry. And usually most of my students, they'll do general chemistry and math in their first year, and then they'll do calculus and, they'll do general biology in their second year, along with organic chemistry. So if you're looking to transfer out in 2 years, the most important sequence for you to take early on is general chemistry. And that sequence can be really hard to get into. It's highly impacted. I'm sure you can ask any one of our student leaders and they'll kind of share their frustrations with you guys. But I typically recommend to students maybe consider taking it over at Foothill, where they have more sections available. So that's general biology. And then on the right-hand side, you'll notice that the math, chemistry, and biology requirements are a lot different for our nursing majors. And so you're going to see statistics, right? You're going to see either chemistry 30A or 30B. But for nurses, the chemistry requirement is it's a wild card. It kind of depends on like where you're looking to apply to, because each school can have a different chemistry requirement. And then the core requirement for nursing majors is biology 40A, B, and C, which is anatomy and physiology. It could be a challenging course for some students who haven't had human biology or AP biology in high school. So I typically recommend human biology, as an elective before you jump into the Bio 40A, which has a lot of vocabulary and it can be really daunting. And so after the 40 series, you're moving on to microbiology. And between, anatomy, physio, and micro, that's usually what nursing programs are looking for. That's like 80% of the admissions decision right there, along with your test scores. So that's just kind of, nursing versus biology kind of in a nutshell. And if you guys have any like questions for me, whether it's, course selection or study tips, or if you're looking for unique opportunities outside the classroom, then feel free to chime in. I'd be more than happy to share with you what I know and offer you guys my encouragement. So not all at once. And it's okay if you guys don't have questions either too. If you guys want to just show up and hang out, that's totally cool. Just share like with you, like, how you ended up at De Anza, or why you might be interested in a certain area.
Yeah, sure. If nobody has questions, I'll jump in with mine. So I just recently tagged to UCI, and I've always dreamt of that school. I was like, the environment and like the food, like I feel like I would vibe with that school. And then I realized, I was speaking to Chloe about this, that they have like a certain like the series called Bio 97 to 99. And I noticed that one of those classes called Bio 99 is like a prerequisite for nearly all the upper division courses at UCI. So like before you can even, once you transfer, like you can't even take the upper divs until you take that class. So I'm just wondering, there's a possibility you may have to stay like a third year, because you got to finish that series. So would you suggest, and I asked someone else this question, they said go to the school that you want to go to rather than like can you finish in 2 years. And I thought that was very interesting advice. And that person also said some students even stay a third year once they transfer because they like to stay in the UC environment so much. So I'm wondering, like, what's your input on that?
Yeah, it's like UC Irvine is has a lot of unique advantages. It's definitely one of the more popular options for students who are transferring out with bio. It's in a lot of ways, if you like Gainesville, right? Like pre-COVID, like just being in this environment, being in the community, the hot pot restaurants, the boba, the palm trees. Irvine is very much like that. And so it's right up your wheelhouse, maybe. You're gonna like it. And I think it's unique because of the student population. It's one of the few schools out there that's designated as both ANAPZ and HSI institution. So that sounds like jargon. You guys have probably have heard of like historically Black colleges and universities, right? Like the HBCUs. So there's different federal designations for colleges and universities that serve predominantly Asian American Pacific Islander students as well as like Hispanic serving institutions. And so Irvine is one of those schools. And so De Anza was an inaugural API campus a few years ago, like 10 years ago. That's how I kind of got started at De Anza. And so with that designation, the campus gets like unique scholarships, leadership, opportunities for their students, a lot of unique curriculum. And so Irvine is, if you're looking for a school that honors like your cultural heritage, or if you're like a first generation student, like a third of their students are like first generation students. Irvine is like a really cool learning environment. It's really student centered. You can kind of get that feel just looking at their website and talking to like students who've gone there in the past. The more I learn about Irvine, the more I love it. Okay. And so you kind of have to take a step back and ask yourself, like, what do you really want out of a college experience? Now, usually the UCs, when they score your application, the first thing they're asking is, Amy, when she comes here, can she excel in the upper division studies? But more importantly, can she do it in a timely manner? Right? Can she do it in 2 years? And so the UCs, whether it's Irvine or any one of those campuses, they really want to they want to see you complete as many of those biology requirements, the calculus, the chemistry, and the general biology. Irvine is unique because they want all of your organic chemistry to be completed prior to transfer. And it's probably because of that bio requirement that you mentioned. Okay. So usually they want you out in 2 years. So the UCs are like, we're not going to let you go part-time unless it's some like disability or, you have like some sort of like major issue like happening in your family. They expect students to be like enrolled full-time and that you're going to do everything you can to graduate within like 2 years. That's just the way the UCs are. You guys have all heard me compare it to like McDonald's. It's you come here, you order the value meal, you eat your sandwich, and then maybe have one soda refill and then get out. They don't want you to doing 5 or 6 soda refills using their Wi-Fi. That's the way the UCs are, man. They want you in and they want you out, and so you just have to kind of be mindful of that. Do as much as you can before you transfer. GE's major prep, and then once you're there, you want to work consistently with your advisor and just stay on track and do what you need to do. And sometimes that means not being involved as much as you like in terms of like, leadership or like other campus organizations or in terms of like study abroad. So you have to ask yourself, like, what kind of undergraduate experience do you want? Academics, or do you want a little bit more balance? So good questions to ask.
Thank you. Okay, that was really helpful. Yeah,
do as
whatever
much as you
place-
can now, Amy.
Yeah. So I have to make decisions soon, so that was great input. We have a question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read it out. So, hi Tom, I'm Alice. Are there any institutions that can help immigrant doctors transfer from other countries to the US? Actually, I am a doctor and have a doctor's license from China.
It's a tough one because the education is one piece, but the other part of it is getting a doctor to kind of sign off and have you work in the office, and there's like liability issues. I will tell you a really great organization. It's called Upwardly Global. Okay. And it's a nonprofit that's out in San Francisco, and it's gotten like great reviews, and it's designed for I'll put it here in the chat here, Upwardly Global, and I'll share the screen. And I'll just spend a little bit of time talking about this. It's a nonprofit out in San Francisco. It's designed for recent immigrants who are highly skilled. So doctors, engineers, nurses, architects, and they give you career coaching. There's a professional network. They'll help you to kind of understand how to navigate the system over here. But like I said, the hard part is, you have the education, but can you get a doctor to kind of take you in? And you get the hands-on training and stuff. Given like the liability issues and stuff, it's pretty difficult. So it's a daunting challenge. And so I have a lot of students who have like similar backgrounds and similar challenges. And I just try to help them understand that, what you've done is important and meaningful, and you can build on that, and use that to find self-confidence and find purpose. There's a lot of different things. What I see is, folks with that background, they'll look into like something like clinical lab scientist as a potential career, if they prefer working with data, um, computers, or they're thinking about maybe a nursing degree. But it kind of depends on your timeline from school to work. Everyone's needs are a little bit different. So, but thank you for asking that question. And what an amazing accomplishment! On a roll, man. Oh, all right. Okay. So I see tips for writing a personal insight question. Okay. So I get this one a lot. So I used to work with students a lot on personal insight questions, but now I get like, I get booked out like 2 3 weeks of things. So I don't really get a chance to do that so much. Um, what I would say is, as you're writing it, number one, make sure you answer the question. Okay. Sometimes students get so geeked out on talking about their strengths or their leadership or their creativity, or a lot of times if they're talking about something difficult and it's not it's like kind of the first time they're talking about it or processing it, they kind of go down this rabbit hole and then they forget to answer the question. So you got to answer the question. But any essay question that you're writing for them, it comes down to like three things. It's like a litmus test. Okay. So you should be able to read it and ask yourself these 3 questions, and it should be clear. Okay. Number one, what did you do? Right? What did you do in terms of like getting ready for upper division transfer? What did you do in terms of like practicing and demonstrating leadership? What did you do in terms of like overcoming adversity? That's number one. Number two, it's, what did you get out of it? So it's not just like listing a bunch of accomplishments or listing a bunch of things that, really suck and, just kind of tripped you up in college, but you have to talk about like, what did you get out of it? So they want to know your values. They want to know your motivation for growth and for learning. And the other part of it too is the third question is like, why does it matter? And so usually I kind of point students to a lot of things around Angela. I don't know if you guys have heard of Angela Duckworth, but she does a lot of work around grit, this idea of like, how do you become successful in the long term? And I'll type it here, but these are some themes that you want to think about as you're writing out your essays. She talks about, Angela Duckworth is this educational researcher, and she's studied, law students, medical students, people at West Point Academy. She studied like, championship athletes, business leaders, and she's trying to figure out like what makes them tick, what makes them successful in their goals. And she kind of boils it down to like 5 categories. The first thing is curiosity. Right. So it's this idea that like you're actually interested in learning something new. You have questions. You're not just kind of going through the motions and checking off the boxes. But as you're reflecting on your experiences in college, you want to ask yourself, like, where did I show the most curiosity? Where did I have fun? Because the fun that you experience in a classroom, that usually leads to like wanting to know more about it. So asking yourself, how did I show curiosity? Number 2, she talks a lot about like practicing with purpose. Okay. So what that means is like, how do you get like 1% better every day? Right? Like, you're not just like, I have students who are just like, I spent 2 hours like studying, but I don't know what I got out of it. Whereas like, if you're mindful about, the areas that you need improvement on, and you're intentionally building on those skills, that's what she's talking about. It's about sacrificing. It's about spending some lonely hours in the library till like 2 a.m, but you're doing it because you're trying to get better at what you want to do. It's moving from having fun to like wanting to be as good as you can possibly be. right? That's the shift in your motivation. So she talks about like, are you trying to get better every day? And she talks a lot about resiliency, right? And everybody has their own definition of what it means to be resilient, but it's this idea that you can go through good times, you can go through bad times, you can have heartbreak and it gets you angry, you can have moments where your head gets a little bit bigger than it should be, but it's learning how to get back to your original form and being true to yourself and sticking to your goals, right? She also talks about passion, which is a word that's oftentimes used in education, but really it's just finding something that you like and you're willing to kind of think about a lot, even when you're not outside of school. And then 5, she talks a lot about gratitude, right? So if you can kind of think about these themes and find out like where those themes can kind of show up in your story, especially as you talk about transferring requirements or leadership or creativity, ask yourself, like, what did you do? What did you get out of it? Why does it matter? That's a good framework to have as you kind of go forward writing your essay questions. And you want to, usually in every essay question, it's like, what is it, like 450 words now? Is it 450 words is the max? Or is it 350 words?
I think 350.
It's harder when it's that small. It used to be 1,000 words, and students had the choice of like it used to be 2 essays, and you had 1,000 words total, and you could decide how you wanted to allocate those words. Like 700 for one and 300 for another. So when you have a smaller like space to kind of deliver your narrative, you got to be really focused. You got to be really, really focused, and there's just no room to kind of for verbiage or extra words. So you got to make your sentences tight. You got to grit exactly. You got to make your sentences tight. You got to be focused, and you got to know what you want to say. In a lot of ways, the smaller or the shorter responses are like the hardest ones to write because it forces you to do a lot of brainstorming and a lot of difficult decision making before you sit down and you actually write. But you kind of have to go through 2 or 3 drafts. But for a lot of you guys, you're doing like OChem and physics and doing all sorts of stuff like this year. So you have to kind of be honest with yourself and say, like, how much energy do I want to give to this project? Okay. Obviously, the more competitive the program you're applying to, those personal statements are going to matter more. So your UCLA's, your UC Berkeley's, they're going to take a hard look at those personal statements. And usually, if you write a really good one, you can flip it and use it to find internships and scholarships like later in the academic year. And so that's what I always tell students. There's an intrinsic value, but there's also an extrinsic value, right? Like the extrinsic value is like, okay, I won a scholarship. Awesome. I got into UCLA. Awesome. Right? Or I got an internship for this summer. Awesome. But the intrinsic value, the stuff that you can't really, touch and hold with your hands, it's really, if you write a really good statement, it gives you clarity, it gives you self-confidence, it connects you to something bigger. And I find students, when they leave here, I always tell students that, it's not where you go, it's how you go. Right. So, I mean, if you're picking between like San Diego and LA and you're not sure which one's better, you have to ask yourself, like, how are you prepared to make the most of your opportunities as you go forward? And having a clear-cut narrative, a sense of who you are and where you stand in the struggle, what you're willing to fight for, that usually helps you out. All right, so where's some other questions?
Thank you for that, Tom. I think Van had a question, his hand's up. Van, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm at work right now, but so I have a question about, so I'm a second year. Yeah, I'm a second year. So I was thinking about transferring in my 3rd year. What is the timeline to transfer? Like, how does that work?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're in the quarter system. It'll be like in the middle of the winter quarter, or it'll be in the middle of the fall quarter when we're supposed to be transferred.
Yeah. No, most students, most of my students, even the ones that go to LA and Berkeley, they take 3 years. So it's really normal. Just because, especially if you're targeting like a top tier UC, there's a tension that every student has to balance. It's like, how do I complete these requirements in a timely manner? So my parents don't give me, too much grief. But then at the same time, how do I maintain like some competitive grades? So 3 years is kind of the magic number. And UCs don't take mid-year transfers. I want to say maybe Merced has like a spring application, but I'm not entirely sure. But all the UCs, they have fall admission cycle. So typically, like say in your 3rd year, your final year, you apply right now. It's happening right now as we speak. It's in the fall, and the application opens up in August. There's I want to say just 6 schools that offer the tag. Basically Berkeley, LA, and San Diego, the 3 most popular UC campuses. They get more student interest than there are students seats available. So they don't offer the tags, but the other schools do. And so you do that like early on. You start the application in August, you have the tag by September, and then the actual UC application is due by the end of November 30th. Okay, so November 30th is a date circled on my calendar every fall, because that's when I can kind of breathe and exhale and actually, play with my children again. But you have to tag and apply to the same, apply to that school as well. So you have to kind of do it twice. You don't just tag to Davis and then forget about it. You have to tag to Davis or tag to wherever and then apply to that same school. And at the same time, you can choose other UC campuses. And later in the year, let's say you got tagged, your tag with Davis or Irvine was accepted, but you also got admitted to LA or Berkeley, rather take your talents there. You're free to do that. You can just say thank you, but no thank you, I'm taking my talents. So that's usually the CSU's UC applications are in the fall, and then you have the private school applications in the winter. And so usually students have about like 45 to 55 units when they file. And then by the end of the year, so by the end of this spring, you got to have at least 90. Okay. And most students are doing biology. They'll probably transfer out like 110, 115 units. That's kind of average. So basically it's just, you just file at the start of the year. It's like high school. And then you have to do your academic update in January, where you report your grades from fall. And then letters come out in spring.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question in the chat. I said, do transfer requirements greatly differ from UCs versus applying to privates?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so private schools, they make their own rules. Some of them use the IGETC GE pattern, and then others don't, especially if it's like a religious based or related like college. They might have like courses that you have to take. Usually private schools are expensive, right? So I talked about UCs and kind of compared to McDonald's. The private schools, you've heard me compare them to like, the $50 steakhouse experience. A lot of them, once you kind of contact them, they're willing to kind of roll out the red carpet and give you like, the white glove service. They'll, answer all your questions. They're very friendly, give you a campus tour. They'll probably give you a free water bottle. It's because they want you on their campus and they want 70 grand a year from you. Yeah. So, but they have their own GE requirements and they have their own major requirements. But usually for biology majors, it comes down to, at every campus, it usually comes down to calculus, general chemistry, and general biology. Okay. So you got to try to complete those sequences prior to transfer. If you look at the locals, private schools like Santa Clara, they might have, I think they have like scholarships, right? Like for De Anza students. So that's kind of the strategy for all these private schools. They'll work with the local community college and offer their transfer students like a $15,000 scholarship just to help them, consider going to that private school. Usually these schools, they want you as early as your first year, right? Like they'll say, hey, all you need is like 36 quarter units. File an application with us. We just want 2 English classes, a math class, and maybe a few other classes here and there. And then they're happy to have you on board for the next 3 years, which is fine. You have to look into it and see if it's worth the money, if it's worth the opportunity cost, so on and so forth. We have like some really good options in the Bay Area. Santa Clara is great. University of San Francisco is great for nursing, but it's a really expensive program. St. Mary's is on a list, New York Times, like top 40 transformative colleges. I did my master's program there and I loved it. There's a lot of good options in the Bay Area, that's for sure. And usually you apply for them in the winter. All right. Okay, good questions. They use the comment app to apply to the private schools unless they have their own application platform.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have other questions?
Yeah, I have the number.
Sure.
Okay, so what's the process to tag to a school? Because like you've been talking about tag, but what's the process of tagging a school?
So you want to do your English and your math early on. Okay, so like your English writing 1A class and like a transferable math class. So if you're a biology major, it could be pre-calculus, math 32, it could be math 1A, it could be math 10 statistics. You want to do that early on because some of those schools are going to ask, like I think Santa Barbara wants it as early as like a year in advance. So that's the first step. The second step is by the end of your, basically they'll have this requirement where let's say you want to tag and transfer out 2 years, right? And so after your freshman year, your first year with us, that summer that follows, you need to have at least 45 UC transferable units, 45, 4 or 5, okay? And then there's the GPA requirement kind of varies by campus. Santa Cruz has a 3.0 minimum requirement. Davis has a 3.2. Santa Barbara and I want to say Irvine have it at 3.4, okay? And then in each major, there are specific requirements. You say, okay, look, it's not just the unit count, and it's not just the GPA, and it's not just the math and the English, but we want you to have, the calculus, the chemistry, the bio done. So you'd have to kind of work with me and we figure out like what those campuses actually want for the major, okay? And so usually during that summer, right, there's a lot of planning that's involved. So you have to create something called the UC TAP account, transfer academic planner, and you're basically entering in your academic history. And then from there, you transfer that information onto the tag application. And the tag application happens in September from like the 1st to the 30th, okay? So that tag is submitted, okay? And then after that, you have to turn in the UC application. So let's say you tagged with Irvine, then you also have to apply to Irvine, and the majors have to match. You can't apply for engineering on the tag, or not engineering is a bad example, biology, and then on the application you're applying for like creative writing or something, right? They have to match. And then some schools, they do pre-evaluation and others don't. So what that means is like a school like Davis, they do the pre-evaluation. So they'll notify you by Thanksgiving whether or not your tag has been accepted, okay? Other schools, they're just like, yo, we'll tell you when we want to tell you. Like Santa Barbara is not going to tell you like a week before the letters are actually rolled out in spring. So I say that because, admissions can be kind of like an up and down, roller coaster, a lot of emotions, a lot of anxiety. And so, a school like Davis, it's like a godsend, right? Like they let you know early on that you have a spot that you're going to land on, like early in the year. So you can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Now, the thing is, the tag is like it's a contract, okay? Because on the contract, you're telling them like, yo, these are the classes that I'm going to take in the fall. Here are the classes that I'm going to take in the winter and spring. And I promise that I'm going to keep my grades up, 3.2, 3.4, whatever. And at any point you break that contract, oh, I was supposed to do OChem, I was supposed to do 12B in the winter, I couldn't get in, or like this online learning stuff is kind of crazy. I know I was supposed to get like a 3.2, but it went down to the 3.0. Anytime the contract breaks, they have the right to kind of rescind it. And so what that means is your application goes from like a tag pool to like the general applicant pool. So that's why you have to apply to like the school. And so you can still get in, like most students, like 3 out of 4 students, they get to their top tier UC, like their top choice UC without the tag. You can still get in. You just have to be mindful of it. Like the tag makes it a little bit easier, but it's it's not like you have to do it. But I would, it's something that's highly recommended.
So my other question is like, so you said that the tag is only open from September 1st to September 30th. So technically right now would be like, you can't tag to any school at this moment.
Yeah.
So if that would happen, is I have to wait till next September to tag the school.
Yeah, you can still apply. Like I say, you can still apply to the UCs. It's like November 30th is the deadline. You just won't get like guaranteed admission, right? It's just, I mean, so long as you have a competitive GPA and so long as like you meet the minimum standard, like whatever it is, like a 2.4 GPA, 90 units by the end of the spring, and you complete all the required courses for general education. So the 2 English classes, a math class, 4 different GE classes from different areas, and then doing the classes that are required outlined on assist for your lower division major requirements. If you can do all that and get to 90 by the end of spring, you know, and you have a good GPA, competitive GPA, you still have a good shot at getting in. What do you, by the way? You're studying bio?
Sorry?
What are you studying?
Yeah, I'm majoring in biology.
I mean, if you can complete bio, general chemistry, organic chemistry, calculus, and if you have like a 3.5, 3.6 GPA, I mean, you're gonna have some options.
Thank you.
So kind of related to that, Julie asked, are schools nitpicky if you try to finish a series in the summer or want to take more classes?
Well, okay, so let's say you apply this fall, right? So the rule is you got to finish everything by this spring. They won't allow for summer coursework. So you got to try to finish everything. Now, like, you know, if you're talking about like a 3-year plan or something like that, can you take classes over the summer before you apply? Yes. Okay. But it is challenging to take a math or a science class over the summer because, you know, you got 12 weeks in a normal quarter, and then in the summer it's 6 weeks. So a lot of times it's Monday through Friday, and it's like 2-3 hours a day during the summers. So if you have travel plans or you're working, you know, it can be a daunting challenge. So I typically recommend to students, you know, over the summer, if you're looking to get ahead or just to lighten your caseload for the your workload for the following year, you might want to just consider doing like general education classes over the summer. But I don't want to underestimate anybody. And I've seen students do chemistry and biology over the summer and get A's, but it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of like commitment. So.
Another question Megan had was, how important are extracurriculars compared to academics? Would you say?
Megan, it's all part of comprehensive review, but it's not like high school where, you know, you're constantly trying to pad your college like resume, right? It's not like that. By the time you get to college, you're an adult. And the thing about community college is students come from like different backgrounds and they have different needs. You got students they got kids, man. They got kids. They got like, some of them are older than me. Some of them got like a mortgage. You know, they're working like 30 hours a week on top of everything else. And so the UCs are mindful of it. They're not gonna really make a big deal out of like, you know, did you do 15 hours versus 30 hours of community service? For them, it's about the minimum requirements. It's about your GPA in those like major requirements, and it's about your overall GPA. Location matters, right? So, you know, if you're a NorCal student, you have an advantage when you're applying to Santa Cruz or Berkeley or Davis, compared to like schools like San Diego or LA. So location matters. It has to do with the yield. I'll get into that later. But really, at the end of the day, it's about, for UCs, it's really about the major prep. How many did you do? And your grades in those classes. Obviously, you know, if you have like research or internships, if you have like student leadership, that helps, but it's not like high school. It's a different game.
So in the chat, Kirsten asked, if I applied to UCs during my senior year in high school, is it bad if I recycle my past essays or ideas when I apply again before transferring?
They won't look at your high school stuff. You know, let's say if you're in community college, you apply year one and then you apply year two. They'll compare your applications then, and they'll check for like, you know, inconsistencies and whatnot. My concern wouldn't be necessarily, are the UCs going to play, you know, gotcha, right? My concern is, you know, did you grow during your 2 years at De Anza? Like, if you're still talking about like some bake sale you had, you know, in 10th grade, in your transfer application, that's probably not a good idea. They want to know like how you've grown, how you developed, how did you build on your success and your interests from high school. And you know, unless, you know, you're applying your first year for some private school, high school stuff, you know, talking about high school stuff is a no-no, unless you're talking about your legacy. Like, how did you build on, you know, some club you might have founded in high school or some sort of community service project you developed, and you've been able to kind of maintain that commitment through the years, you know, and be able to kind of bring that success to the De Anza campus. You know, other than that, you know, I would just kind of question like, how come you're recycling it word for word, right?
So Megan had a good question. What if a STEM student wants to complete the entire physics, OChem, chem, and bio series all at a community college? Is there a transfer unit limit that we all need to look out for?
Okay, so if you're a traditional transfer student, it doesn't matter. You can have 1 million, you can have 2 billion units. The UCs don't care. They cap you at 105. Anything above that, they give you content credit. So let's say you get 105 units and then you're doing the physics. That's another like 15 units. So what the UCs will say is like, we're not going to take those 15 units from physics, but we'll say that you did it. Okay, we're not going to make you do physics here. We're not going to take those 15 units because we want your money. You paid Deanne's that your money to take those 15 units of physics. We want you over here. And since you don't have to do physics, we don't care. Just take any other class like underwater basket weaving. We just want your money. And so it has to do with like money, and it has to do with like residency requirements, like how much time you spend on a campus. But you can take all those classes at the undergraduate level before you move on. But just to be clear, most of my students over the years, I would say they'll do everything up to like they won't do the physics. Like they'll do bio, chem, OChem, calculus, the GE stuff. Some of them are GETSI certified, others are not. And then they'll save the physics for life after transfer. Just because they just, a lot of them just don't like physics. That's the truth. The ones that do like that end up doing the physics early on, it's because they had like AP calculus in high school or AP physics in high school, and they feel really strong about their skill set, and so they'll kind of knock those classes out of the way. But if you want to do physics during your time here, you got to knock out calculus during your first year, just so that you'll satisfy the prerequisites and have the skill set to thrive in physics. Okay.
So Julie asks, if you take a third year at De Anza, does that mean you would get started right away with the upper divs in year 4?
If you take a third year at De Anza, does it mean no? Because you have prerequisites, and every campus is going to be slightly different. I know that organic chemistry is a big deal. That's why they want you to have it, because that's usually a prerequisite for upper division study. You have some students. I remember I had one student who was super talented, and she ended up transferring out to Berkeley, and she finished like I want to say like a semester early. So anytime you're talking about like timeline to transfer or what would happen after life after transfer, it depends on like the college that you're going to and their curriculum. It depends on your progress in those classes. It depends on how many units you're taking every semester. There's so many different variables, but usually it's going to take like at least 1.5 to 2 years to finish your bachelor's degree. And UCs are really, they're smart about it. If they think it's going to take you 3 years to get your bachelor's degree after you transfer, you're probably going to get a letter saying, something along the lines of thank you for your interest. We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Come back next year and reapply, something along those lines.
So it looks like we don't have any more questions in the chat. Does anyone have any final words to say or any final questions for Tom?
I'll list my email here. So if any of you guys are looking for a student appointment, and you can email me, and I'll get you squared away. I usually get booked out like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, so just kind of be mindful of it and just try to plan accordingly. And winter quarter registration is going to start, I think, around mid-November if you have like group 1 registration, but for most people, it's probably going to happen like after Thanksgiving.
Oh, by the way, Tom, do you know like for sure if classes are in person winter quarter?
Yeah, it's still kind of early. I know our college prep, but right now everything is still kind of fluid, and I haven't gotten an official from our chancellor or from the college president stating otherwise. I will say that October 25th, the schedule of classes will become available for the winter quarter. So you get a more clear sense of how many classes are going to be, completely online versus hybrid. We are doing some in-person instruction for our nursing and H-Tech courses, but right now it's still pretty limited. And I can't imagine them like welcoming back everybody on day 1. It would probably happen in like waves, like, certain programs they're going to be available in person versus like, hybrid.
Yeah, because I would think like soon or like now even they would send us an email like preparing us to come back, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's gonna be, you know, they're gonna have a lot of like different rules. I know they've kind of mentioned like having these scanners outside the building, and you have to scan like these QR codes and all this stuff so they can kind of monitor your foot traffic. There's a lot of rules around being vaccinated, and so you know we'll have a better sense of what's going to be required. Hopefully sooner than later, but right now nothing definitive.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I think that'll be the end of our meeting. We can wrap up really quickly. So thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you as our first guest speaker of the year. If you can stay for a few minutes, we wanted to take a group picture. If everyone wants to put on their cameras really quickly, and we can go ahead and do that. Chloe, when you're ready, you can take it.
If everyone's ready. Oh, hi. Oh my God. I love seeing faces. Okay, if everyone is ready, please give me a thumbs up. Okay, 1 second. Yes, smile. Okay, I got it. Thank you, everyone. Should we do word of the day?
Oh yeah, so thank you, Tom. We just are going through a few more slides. You're free to leave whenever you want, but if the members can stay for a bit, we have a few more slides to go over, and then we want to show you the word of the day as well. Yeah, Megan, do you want to go over the Discord slides? Let me share my screen really quickly.
Yeah, I could share my screen too after.
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you do it?
Okay, so right now I'm gonna go over the Discord and how to basically navigate through it. So when you first join the server, you can see the rules, and once you read through the rules, in order to access the rest of the server, you need to react with this. And then you see on the side, you can access the rest of the server. But if you unreact with it, then you don't get access to the server. If you're still confused on how to gain access, I have a channel named Rules Explanation. And it basically, we have a 2 frames per second GIF that that basically shows you what I just did. And if you're still having like technical problems like the logo emote isn't showing up, here's another GIF that basically shows how to show it. But I want to go briefly on how to navigate. After you react, you can introduce yourself in the introductions. As we can see, we love seeing your introductions. Yeah, we love that. So please introduce yourself if you haven't done so far yet. And then in the bottom of introductions, there's the roles, and in the roles, you can select the corresponding role to obtain the role. For instance, this is letting us know your pronouns. So if your pronouns are she, her, you would select this and you would gain the role. And if you're a Dianza student, you can select this and you'll gain the role as well. And if you're like a biology major here, and basically react with the corresponding emote if this is your major or if it applies to you. For instance, I'm a health major, so I would react with this. And I want to be a nurse in the future as right now, so I would react with this. And let me go on do not disturb. So do you see how I, when I react, I show up here? Yeah, that's basically how we designed it. We designed it so that each of these roles will show up here. So if you have any questions with someone who's who also has the same goals as you, like if they also want to be a PA or if they also want to be a nurse and you want to connect with other people, you can look on the side and click on their profile and check their roles. And you can also see what the pronouns are. So just in case you want to DM them, you can properly gender them. And basically, we made it so that it's more customizable and interactive. So you can feel free to do this. But if you don't react with this, it's all right, because you'll just be labeled as a MOA member right here. Just an MOA member. But yeah. And I wanted to briefly talk about the purpose of these channels. So this channel is basically for MOA specific announcements, like today's event. If you want to be notified by our bi-weekly events and meetings, you can follow this channel and basically see what upcoming events we have or upcoming updates that we have. Like right here, this was Club Day. Yeah, hopefully we saw you at Club Day. And the next channel is basically, this contains a FAQ of MOA itself. And on the bottom of this FAQ, there's also a Discord guide. So basically what I'm going over right now, but I'm doing it verbally. So if you're still confused, you can read this, like, but yeah, I'm briefly going over it right now. And this channel is basically where we'll update you on YouTube channels. Our YouTube channel update, like whenever we post a meeting recording. And this is basically a channel to update you on the opportunity spreadsheet that we, if we ever like have a new opportunity that we found, we will update it here. And as you can see, we just updated 2 of them today. And if you don't want any notifications from here at all, you can right click and mute the channel for however long you want. So yeah, and these channels are basically channels for you to ask specific questions about being your journey to pre-med, your journey to pre-PA, or your journey to nursing, or any allied health questions that you have as well. And these channels are basically the answer specific questions, like, oh, do you have any course recommendations or professor recommendations or anything like that? And this is basically a channel for Dianza opportunities that aren't specifically health related, but can be relevant. Like a lot of people here are biology majors, as you can see in the roles. So that's why we posted this as well. And also the event today, Shania, she was also the former vice president of MOA. And these channels are basically for interacting with your peers and other members. And this channel is basically for if you have any general questions or like anything that's not specific to any of these, you can ask it here or talk about it here. And just share your best memes here. And here's a gaming channel. It might be a bonding event. And you could study with others here too. If you have any additional questions about the Discord, just let me know. And if not, you could DM me. You could do it by clicking on my profile, then clicking on here, then click here, then message. And you can wave and just ask me. You could do that. If you aren't comfortable with asking any questions right now.
Okay. So sorry, Megan, we kind of went over time. So I'm just gonna share word of the day. It's counselor.
Right here.
Yeah. Yes.
Right here.
And Natalia just sent the sign-out sheet, the sign-out form in the chat. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming to our first event. And make sure you sign out. Okay.
Paul, to answer your question, you'll get your point by filling out the form. So just fill out the form and then we will take care of giving you your point. So yeah, like Chloe said, thank you so much for coming to our first event. We hope to see you at many more. We have a lot of events planned for this quarter, so we hope to see you there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
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 Bye, Roger. Bye, Sydney.
Bye.